Our presentation is on the Torrance incubation model of teaching, and the three of us will walk you through various elements of the model and try to give you a good overview of kind of what the model addresses and how to implement it in classes. So, to begin, the Torrance incubation model began as a way to identify the skills associated with creativity, and the idea of how to teach creativity to students and what the best way to do that is. And so, Torrance himself did several studies to go through that and developed the Torrance incubation model of teaching. And to the left of this screen, there is this great visual that kind of encompasses the three areas that I'm about to review to show you how the incubation model works as a cohesive whole. So, the wonderful thing about the model itself is that it was developed with the idea that it can be used in any lesson, in any content area, with any curriculum in the classroom. So, super inclusive to all teachers. The idea at itself, at the most kind of elementary level, is that it is for teachers to teach creativity throughout their lesson and without their lesson focus being altered. So taking a lesson focus and using that as a starting point, but making creativity a pivotal point in that lesson, however, not needing to necessarily change what your end all goal was. So Torrance says this is achieved through three stages. First, heighten anticipation. So the initial thing, right, we talk about this as teachers all the time, is to heighten anticipation within the student body. So to prepare students for the assignment. And within this, there's kind of 6 steps, or 6 functions rather. So it's the idea to create the desire to know, heighten anticipation and expectation, get attention, arouse curiosity, and what he says is tickle the imagination and give purpose and motivation. In other words, these bell ringers, these activities that we do to get students prepared and ready to learn. The second step is to deepen expectations. So we have to define the problem. And more than that, we have to apply the problem and then nurture creativity in the application process. So how can we ask students to go beyond kind of that initial step of the question and rather come up with solutions that should be applied? And then the last thing is to extend learning. So to take the solution and ask, how can I impact this in the real world? And we know as learners of gifted education that that's so critical for gifted education students. So this next section is supposed to address how the incubation model can be implemented in schools. So as previously stated, the idea of the incubation model is that this can be applied anywhere at any time. It doesn't matter whether you're teaching math or theater or art or language arts, it can all be applied. So the example listed below is an application in a theater class, and it goes through the 3 stages really well. So the idea of the project was that students were asked to explore various theoretical concepts having to do with a carnival. And so they were asked to go through the process of mask making and create and analyze their own characters. So stage 1 asked students to project and set their own learning goals and begin creating their own masks. So within the stage, there was really no guidelines, right? So that's how the creativity began to be fostered, is there's no guidelines or restrictions placed on students in terms of how they should create their masks or what their masks should look like. So free to do whatever kind of comes to mind within this assignment. Stage 2 is students got their blank mask and they were asked to create their own character. So after they've come up with their character in stage 1, then they literally create their character and the mask. Again, there's no restrictions. And once their character is created, they then had to tie it to a fictional or non-fictional character. So they had to use prior learning skills or the idea of characterization and creating characters and share it with other students in the class. And within this step, they were asked to consider how their confidence in creating their mask was impacted in the idea that they didn't necessarily have to show their faces while they were performing. So the difference between being masked and unmasked. And then stage 3, students selected a section of the assigned play. So they then paired it with a play to explore and use their character as a basis for performing a character that had already been pre-written. And so to tie that to a theme or central idea and use that character as a focal point of the play.